The New Orleans Saints 2017 season was all about rededicating themselves to the running game and their defense. Both were excellent last year as they made it to the divisional round and one miraculous play away from the conference title game. What can we expect from the Bayou Boys in 2018? We'll break down the New Orleans Saints in our 2018 NFL season preview. Let's take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense. The New Orleans Saints will be without the services of starting tailback Mark Ingram for the first 4 games of the season due to league suspension, and it's leading to a slight question mark for the first quarter of the year with regards to the running game. We know last year that then rookie Alvin Kamara and Ingram worked perfectly in a tandem, but now for at least the first quarter of the year, Kamara could be considered the lead dog. The question then becomes, who is going to spell him and take some of the pressure off him in case he's not able to handle an increase in a traditional workload? Seeing that this may be an issue, the Saints went out and signed Terrence West and more recently Shane Vereen, who was cut from the same cloth as Kamara. There's also Jonathan Williams, who could jockey for carries as well. Who knows, Kamara may even surprise and be able to handle an Ingram-sized workload, but I think what'll be key during a 4-game stretches for head coach Sean Payton to not use it as an excuse to lean heavily on Drew Brees in the passing game and get away from the balance that he showed last season. Last year, the New Orleans Saints defense registered 42 sacks, which was tied for 7th in the NFL. You could tell that the staff and the front office didn't want complacency to set in and made it a point to keep the pressure coming opposite of Cam Jordan heading into this year to increase those numbers. This was made evident by their trading up in the first round to select Marcus Davenport out of Texas San Antonio. He has all of the athletic traits, but it'll be up to Brian Young, who's the Saints pass rush specialist, and defensive line coach Ryan Nielsen to get him to put it all together on a consistent basis. They also brought back Alex Okafor, who was playing really well before going on IR with a season-ending injury. And what's also exciting is that there are some young players on the roster like defensive ends Trey Hendrickson and Al-Qaeda Muhammad, who were rookies last year, and they are expected to be key contributors this upcoming season. Both guys have immense pass rushing potential. The Saints staff recognized that there were some areas of improvement in the passing game that needed to be addressed this offseason. One thing certain, they have a star in wide receiver Michael Thomas, and the goal is to find a consistent complement to go along with him and the veteran Tay again. New Orleans feels as though they found that guy in Cameron Meredith, a free agent signee from the Chicago Bears, who missed all of last season with an injury and was primed for a breakout year last year, quite honestly, with the Bears before tearing his ACL. He has good athleticism, good hands, and we'll see how he recovers from that injury. In the draft, they passed on well-known targets to take Traquan Smith in the 3rd round out of UCF. They like the speed aspect of his game in conjunction with his frame, and he's very similar to what they've already signed in Cam Meredith. Also expect Austin Carr to toss his name in the hat as well, as he was on the team last year and is one of the best route runners on the squad. So that'll be one of the stories to watch during training camp, is who starts to emerge as that guy for this offense. It'll also be interesting to watch the backup quarterback battle this camp between free agent signee Tom Savage, Taysom Hill, who was on the squad last year, and undrafted rookie free agent JT Barrett. Really, at least in my opinion, it's between Barrett and Hill. Hill was on the squad last year, like I mentioned, and has the athleticism and the ability to threaten with his legs that you want at the position in this era of football. He's also the vaunted fan favorite because of his time spent on special teams coverage units. But Barrett has those same elements to his game as well and is a more accomplished passer than Hill is. What will be interesting is that how each guy moves the offense playing within the system during the preseason. And to be honest, if both guys handle their business well, then Savage may be the odd man out. One of the reasons for optimism for the New Orleans Saints has to start with Drew Brees. As you watch the Saints, you never really feel as though that they are truly out of a game as long as number 9 is at the controls. The future Hall of Famer is truly the key to the offense, and as he goes, so does the Saints' fortunes. I also think one of the major reasons for optimism this season has to revolve around the Saints' defense. This was a group that was brash, aggressive, and opportunistic last year, and the scary part is that they may actually be better in 2018. The Saints have 2 stars in defensive end Cam Jordan and second-year cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, who won the Rookie of the Year for the defensive player last season, and a host of solid players that are not even entering their prime yet, like David Onyemata, Sheldon Rankins, Marcus Williams, and even Von Bell. One of the additions that could make a huge difference is linebacker Demario Davis, who comes over from the New York Jets, where he led them in tackles last season. They also added some good depth in the secondary in the draft as well, so look for them to improve on last year's impressive numbers. As long as head coach Sean Payton's commitment to the running game remains the same, you can have a ton of optimism about the Saints. This was the biggest difference in the Saints offense last season. They've always had talented tailbacks under Sean Payton. The difference has been, especially in the 3 consecutive 7-9 seasons, was the lack of commitment to running the football. If that starts to tilt back toward Brees and not toward the backfield, then it could be a problem. But if he stays the same like he was last year, committed to the ground game, then things could be all good in New Orleans. The offensive line gives you another reason for optimism. Last year, you saw Andrews Pete find a home on the inside as a guard. Rookie Ryan Ramsey proved to be solid at tackle, and the sign of Larry Walford last offseason proved to be another huge addition as well. And both vets Teron Armstead and Max Unger are amongst the best in the league at their position. There's also good depth behind these guys as well, despite the retirement of Zach Strief in the offseason. A cause for concern will be the tight end position. The Saints have really struggled to find a replacement for Jimmy Graham and really have tried multiple options at this spot, but none have become noteworthy. This offseason, he brought back the wily vet Benjamin Watson, who is entering his 15th season in the league, and we've started to see them sort of de-emphasize his position as of late. But if this offense really wants to take the next step, someone has to step up and become a threat. The same can be said for the receiving core outside of Michael Thomas. Now that we've seen the Saints be good without premier number 2 or number 3 options, but that was usually because of the fact that they had a tight end that they could serve in that capacity. This year, with the drafting of Traquan Smith and the signing of Cameron Meredith, the Saints hope that those 2 guys can emerge as the threats this offense needs. I would also be concerned about Patrick Robinson, who makes his way back to New Orleans after winning a Super Bowl title with the Philadelphia Eagles. Robinson was a first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints a while back, I want to say back in 2010, and there was a reason why he was benched on occasion and ultimately ran out of town prior to bouncing from the Chargers to the Colts and then the Eagles last season. The hope is that the light has come on for the 9-year vet, but definitely should be a big concern if he's thrust into a starting spot opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. Here are some quick Saints takes as they head into training camp. Look for Andrews Pete and David Onyemata to have breakout seasons. Pete was a former first-round pick that seems to have settled in as a guard and should continue to build on the solid 2017 season. Onyemata saw his playing time increase last year and got better each and every week. He's a good player on both ends of defense and should become a household name by season's end. Some training camp surprises would be running back Jonathan Williams and defensive end Al-Qaeda Muhammad. Williams gets forgotten when the running back position gets talked about in New Orleans, but he has good all-around game and will remind people of that during training camp. And Muhammad was out of football in 2016, saw some time last year, and should now be back to his 2015 form when he was at the University of Miami. Now that he's back in football shape and more acclimated to the program, I think he's ready to break out for sure. Rookie impact players to watch are undrafted rookie free agent wide receiver Keith Kirkwood out of Temple and defensive back Natrell Jamerson out of Wisconsin. Kirkwood, to me, was a big-time signing as he has the polish to his game in addition to the athletic traits that you look for at the position to make himself known throughout camp and could earn himself time in a regular offense. There's always one undrafted free agent guy that makes his way onto the Saints roster and becomes a key contributor. Kirkwood is that candidate for me. And Jamerson was my #1 free safety prospect in his draft class, but he's versatile enough to play corner, in the slot, or out there on the perimeter, and also has the ball skills that you want patrolling the back end. I think he's going to have a big-time impact on his defense. From a fantasy football perspective, Drew Brees is the main focus in your fantasy draft. I know everyone is going for Alvin Kamara. Some are even taking him in round 1, which I find highly questionable. If you find yourself ready to select a quarterback, don't sleep on Brees, as he's been a good fantasy play since arriving in the Big Easy. The road to the Super Bowl for the Saints goes as follows. If there was an area that the Saints defense had to improve in, it would be the run defense. They were 16th in the league last year in stopping a run, and that needs to creep into the top 10 this season. Also, rookie first-round pick Marcus Davenport has to be a special player as a rookie. I know that's a ton of pressure to put on a raw rookie, but when you give up the draft capital the Saints did to acquire his services, he better hit the ground running from day one and have a tremendous impact defensively. And finally, if the offense stays committed to the run first, then the Saints can Benson boogie on over to Atlanta in February for Super Bowl 53. I have the Saints finishing first in the NFC South. I think this defense will be a top 8 defense in the league this year and will be a big reason why the Saints can make a deep run into the playoffs. Again, the offensive philosophy for the Saints' postseason success under Payton has come when they've been a top 10 rushing team in the league. If you combine that with an improved defense that can take the ball away, things could get interesting down in New Orleans this upcoming year. So that's it for our 2018 NFL season team preview. Be sure to follow me on all of our social media accounts. Also check out and subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast, and to find other NFL team previews for our 2018 NFL season kickoff, visit the YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan and click that subscribe button.